One day I got sick. Now, on this day, 11 years ago, this was a really tough time in my life. I was in a really challenging work situation that pretty much felt like throwing myself against an unforgiving wall every single day. And aside from that, I was an overachiever, a people pleaser, a perfectionist, great trifecta of traits. And I was exhausted. I was burning the candle at both ends, and I was ignoring self-care. At this point, I did not discover my inner power. Instead, I was ruled by my inner critic. Awesome. My inner critic, who liked to bark at me and tell me that I was not good enough, and that I needed to try harder to prove myself. And at the same time, I was busy blocking and stuffing and suppressing grief and trauma from my sister's death years earlier that I didn't want to deal with. So who's surprised? I got sick. I woke up one morning looking kind of like this. I had pain that began in my arm and each day migrated somewhere else in my body until a myriad of mysterious symptoms seemed like they had taken me over. I was soon labeled with all kinds of lovely names: chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and rheumatoid arthritis, and depression. Yes, so with all of these labels in tow, I became victim to illness. I let myself be victim to illness. And soon, I could no longer function. I could no longer hold a job. I had to quit a job. I had to move home at the age of 25 and be taken care of by my parents. That felt really good. And I was in a sick box, you could say. The good news, and luckily there is a lot of good news, is that this became a turning point. I remember the day that I decided I wanted something more out of life, and that I was actually willing to do something about it and to make my life better. I reached out to an expressive arts therapist, the first time I'd heard of one, and I discovered how to access my own creativity for healing. I woke up to the beginnings of what I came to understand as my inner power. I stopped playing like a fragile victim, and I started making choices instead of just reacting. I realized that I could not control life, and I couldn't control what was going on in my body, but I could control how I responded to all of it. I discovered how much power I really did have to shape my own experience of life. So instead of focusing all my attention and energy on being sick, I began to focus my attention and energy on being well. And I focused on my potential instead of my limitation. And this path that I began at that point, I now call my creative wellness journey. I've been on the creative wellness path ever since. And it's kind of like being on a daily treasure hunt for all your inner resources and capacities and strengths, or your inner power tools, we might say today. And the thing about these inner power tools is that we all have them, all the time, every second, but sometimes in life we're disconnected from them. And boy, does it feel good when we reconnect. The best thing that I discovered on this whole journey was how to accept and love myself for the very first time. Every bit of me. Because I wanted other women, especially those dealing with health challenges, to also reclaim their lives and love themselves and discover their inner power, I went to graduate school, became an expressive arts therapist, and in 2008 founded Spark Creative Wellness Studio. Now, I am very grateful to say I have supported and helped and inspired thousands of women right here in Nashville and around the world.